All right, everybody, we are at the SCX24 Deadbolt. We are going to install these Portal add-on kits to the cheap Amazon axles that we bought. These are DKKY brand. We're going to show you real quick on the clearance. We got a skid plate on this front axle and rear axle, and if you see, that's just the cheap metal axle that we got from online. If we take one stock SCX24 tire, we can slide it on there and you can see it barely starts to move the crawler. So we have the clearance of one tire underneath that diff plate. This is a WPL tire for your 1/16 scale, and it hits, see? So we're gonna try and add these portals on and see how much clearance we get. There are some things with them that you should note. This brand did not come with any instructions, so we're kind of gonna wing it, and hopefully it works. The gears themselves, everything's gonna have to be lubricated. You gotta make sure everything's in there properly so you don't lose anything. Other than that, it should be a straightforward install. Also, too, you'll probably have to reverse your motor on your controller. Depending on what ESC and controller you have, it'll be a switch. If not, you would just flip around the motor wires inside the little JST plug or a PH 2.0 plug that you have on there. So we're gonna get the back wheel. Actually, we'll do one side at a time, just to show you. But we'll start with the back wheel because that's probably gonna be the easiest. So we're just gonna get it off here. All right, we got our wheel off here. And we have our Treel rotor there. We'll just go ahead and remove that pin and just drop it over here. Not sure if we're gonna need it. Now we're gonna have to remove these two screws out of the axle hub there in order to put one of these rear plates on there, and I believe it's this rear plate that goes on there. So we're gonna get this thing apart and set that plate on there. All right, all we did was remove the two screws out of the axle housing there, and we pulled out our rear axle. We upgraded it from the stock one, so yours may not look like this silver one. And it's kind of a shame because these are nice axles, but they came with new axles. They're definitely not as beefy. The aftermarket axles on there are definitely more beefy, but hopefully these will hold out and won't snap or anything. So we're gonna just drop this right back into the hole here, and that's the stock bearing that's inside there. And if you notice, there's no threads on that. That's because that's gonna have to go into the axle housing, the little portal part. So we're gonna bolt that piece onto here now. All right, so we bolted up the back portal housing on here. It's this little triangle or diamond looking one. And as you see, there's a small bearing in there. We removed it on the one on the truck because you have to put those two screws in. So we're gonna do this one live now, just drop it in, and it's pretty simple. It just falls right in there, and then get a little pick, or you can use the axle or something and just spin that around until it goes in there. It'll eventually drop in. Let me use the axle, it'll be a little easier. Okay, let's see, let's get this side. There we go. Of course it's gonna fight me now that it's on camera. There we go. And that kind of just pops down in there and it'll set flush. So the next thing you're gonna wanna do is go ahead and prepare your backing plate, and it's gonna be, oh, drop a little axle out of there. It's gonna look like that. and inside it you're going to put the one that goes in the back housing here is the smallest bearing. That's the second smallest, and that's the largest. And there's there's two huge ones for the front. They won't fit. And each one of these are all different sizes, so you really can't mess it up. It's kind of hard to. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna get the gears and everything on here. So you have a little gear set here. Let me try and focus here. If you see that little gear set, it's got a hex head. That hex head sits on top of that hex head in there. So we're just gonna go ahead and drop that in there like that. And now the top part of the portal gear is done. So what we wanna do is we're gonna lube up these little bearings with some 107 lube, and we'll come right back. All right, so we lubed up the little bearings. What we're gonna do now is take the rear stubby axle here, and it's gonna go right onto this little gear here, and it's gonna lock in, and that's gonna sit right down on that bottom section there, just like that. And that's gonna complete your rear portal setup. We're gonna wanna pack some grease in there and then seal it up with all the screws. So we will put some of this 106 grease in there, and this is the stuff that we use on our our model trains. It's been really, really good. So we'll squirt some of this lube in there, make sure it's packed in there. And that should be more than enough to get around in there and do its thing. We'll pull this out and put a little bit on this as well. All right, we got everything pretty much filled and lubed up in there. It's looking good. Now you're gonna take this back plate here, and it's pretty self-explanatory. It can only go on one way. You're gonna go ahead and drop it down over the top of that. Everything should sit nice and flush. Take 3 screws and put them in, and they're gonna be 3 of the Allen screws, it looks like. All right, and as you see there, those 3 Allen heads go right back on pretty easily. We're gonna go ahead and throw the stock pin back in there. It did not come with any new ones, so you'll have to reuse your old axle pin to retain the wheel and everything on there, and the axle nut in the wheel. Get this thing out here, and we'll make sure it fits with all the brass add-ons here as well. All right, it's machined very tightly. Tolerances on this thing. Let's go ahead and get this trill back on there. We'll go ahead and set the wheel back on. All right, and everything pretty much went back on butter smooth. All right, sorry about that. We ran out of memory on the phone, but as I was saying, everything went on pretty smooth. There were some little tight areas pushing the bearings in, but nothing serious at all. It is definitely a wider stance. As you can see on the one side here, you get a huge stick out as compared to the other side. Overall, it looks like it's gonna do a good job. We're just gonna get this other back one on here so we can compare the front to the back, because the truck sat level front to back, so it'll give you kind of an idea how much more height clearance you got on here. All right, we got both of the rear portal add-on kits. As you can see, the stance is much wider than stock. So if you're already running a wider axle setup, you may want to go back to stock unless you just want a super, super wide setup. The tires here, the Injora tires with the Trio bead locks, they lined up right here with the rock slider. Now the tire is out here. So we'll get a straight edge here and try and show you guys. Let's see, something that's straight. To give you an idea of how much that tire actually sticks out there, it's about as thick as a finger length, an average finger length, I should say. As far as the clearance, remember we can only get one regular tire through. So that tire clears no issues now. And the bigger, wider tire here off the WPL 116 now fits underneath there, doing what the small tire did, just barely grabbing the differential down there. So we gained essentially, let's see, let's line these tires up, just under a whole nother stock SCX tire. You see, we gained that much clearance down there, which on a 124 scale is pretty good. So 2 tires, it won't fit, but other than that, they're decently priced. And if you had already upgraded metal axles like we did, you can go ahead and just get these Portal add-ons, and together the actual set here will run you cheaper than an actual Portal setup. If you want to go that route and save some money, you're gonna have to do a little work, but it does save money. So go ahead and get the fronts on and show you how that's done next. All right, we're gonna start working on the front. Same thing, we're just gonna take the wheel off and get all the way down to that hub. All right, we are on the front side now. We're gonna go ahead and just break the wheel down and remove the hub. And you should know how to do that if you've done any modifications to these. They come right off. So we'll just get everything broken down to the hub there. All right, at this point, once you've broken it down, if you have the stock axle in there, you're gonna leave it. As you can see, this is not the stock one. So we're gonna have to lift this one out, get rid of it, and we'll have to put the stock one back in. Clean out your area here, and we'll drop the stock one back in there with the stock bearing because the aftermarket axle we had didn't require it. All right, once you put the stock axle back in, we can go ahead and just move this assembly out of the way. And unlike the rears that had to be bolted directly onto the axle housing, we can go ahead and just assemble this Portal gear just like this. So here's the front. We got the biggest bearing in the back there, and then we have the second biggest in there. So all we're gonna do with this now is we are going to take that little joint there. We're gonna stick it through there. That is going to leave you, I'm sorry for the focus, I don't know why it's doing this. It's gonna leave you with the little hex there where you can drop on the gear like that. And then we're gonna go ahead and wanna put our lube in there. And drop this one in there. And make sure you have that other small bearing back there for this gear to ride on. So we're in there now. And we can go ahead and put this last piece on, which will go in there, and give it a couple turns. Make sure everything's spinning in there like it's supposed to. Everything looks good. All right, feels good. Now you're gonna go ahead and just take the other housing, and you'll have 2 bearings in there. Just go ahead and put it through the hole. And that should go right on there, and we'll put the 3 Allen heads in there. All right, once you got everything together, it should look like this. Give it a couple spins. Now the ears are brand new, so slight noise or very slight tension on it is normal. That'll wear in. So now what we want to do is we want to stick some grease down into this hole here for the joint. And then just go ahead and drop it back on the truck. Let's get this back over here. All right. And everything should fit as normal back on here. And you may have to rotate it a little bit to get it on there. There we go. And we'll go ahead and put the steering link back on to make it easy. And have something to hold. All right, steering link's on. Now we're just gonna go ahead and put the little brass spacers there. These little tiny brass spacers and screws, and go ahead and Loctite those in. All right, we got it buttoned back up. We'll flip it around, show you guys. The stance is much, much wider on this thing. Let's see here. Let's just set the body on here where it would normally set. There we go. And as you can see, and the body's not on there perfect right now, but as you can see, you got much wider stance there and a much bigger gap under there, you know, from before. We couldn't even get this tire under there, now look. So way better clearance down there, even with the skid plate. We can get a larger 1/16 tire under there. So we're gonna get this thing buttoned up and we'll go test its performance out. One thing to note, once you do install these portals, you have to reverse your motor leads unless you have a switch on your transmitter, because these will run in reverse because of the reduction, or because of the way the gears work inside the housings here. So don't forget that. Reverse will be forward, forward will be reverse until you swap them. All right, we're just gonna run it through this little course we got just to show you some articulation, nothing serious. When we get right up on there, no issues at all. So we'll come through here and see, and the stance is super wide. We built this course for a standard size SCX. So with this huge, huge stance now, it might be a slight issue. So there's nothing, oh, let's see. Yeah, it's not, there we go. Just gotta get used to these larger axles. Well, wider stance, I should say. Before we used to drag right here. So we're doing actually pretty well. We got some good clearance, so no issues there. Oh, took a spill. All right, let's try and go up these little pegs here. Now this was always a little bit of a challenge too, because it would slip. I want to see it wants to do that no matter what axle we use. Well, let's see if we can get something else going here real quick. It's really hard to get up that. It's just, there's no grip on these little wood things here. There we go, a little bounce action. So we'll try and go down this way now. just to show you guys some articulation. So it's clearing pretty good. We'll zoom in there and show you guys. So again, we used to hit on that rock right there, and now we clear it pretty good. Yep, clearing everything. So definitely an increase in clearing. Not 100% sure about performance, but we'll do a little zoom in here again and see if we can get some views of the bottom of the axle going up. Yeah, this course is a little tough. I built it really tough so we could really test these rigs. There's like almost no lines of approach on this thing. Ah, you see? It'll get up there pretty quick. Alright, so the video cut out again. Really got to do something about this memory. But until then, let's talk about these portals. If you are just buying them to go onto the stock plastic axles, this is going to be the cheapest way to get you into a portal setup. If you have metal axles like we do, or anything like that, and you have these type of U-joints, what's going to happen is you're going to have to switch back to the stock ones, and you're going to lose some turning radius and everything, simply because the stock axles, axle shafts, once they get to a certain point, they start to bind. These ones have that universal joint in there, and very rarely do they bind up. You can almost go 90 degrees with them. So that is one downside. But if you're looking to get into portals for under like 60 bucks or so, I think because this kit was like 30 and these axles were like literally 20 bucks. It is the cheapest way to get into portals. Would we get these again? It's too early to tell. We will update you guys in the future, but we're gonna get on to installing the transmission. So check that video out. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.